Boys. I'm part of the National Strategic Accounts team for GAF, and it's a pleasure to be here in our 19th consecutive year as a sponsoring vendor here at Best of Success. Thank you for the opportunity. If you're a reader of Roofing Contractor magazine, you're probably familiar with our next speaker. Tammy Clark is a well-known name among the readers. Her expertise is in advocating for strict safety compliance in the roofing and construction industries. As the principal of Tammy K. Clark Companies, her firm specializes in conducting audits and using SWOT analysis, and then developing training programs and guidelines to build a robust culture of safety. This ensures that every employee from the C-suite to the stockyard prioritizes compliance and an injury-free workplace. Let's work toward a safer environment and give a warm welcome to Tammy Clark.
Well, hello everyone. It's great to be here again. This is my second year at Best of Success. I was really blown away. Last year I have spoken at a lot of different events, professional industry organizations, as a construction safety and health specialist. But I was so blown away at Best of Success, and I was really honored to be asked to come back and speak again. So thank you, Jill. It's been great to get to know you personally as well. I'm very impressed with this organization, with the NRCA and with the events that you all put on. So it's my pleasure to be back here with you again today. A little bit about me. I started as a construction owner about 25 years ago. I owned a masonry and a carpentry company. We worked all over doing specialty masonry, carpentry work, historic types of masonry, to Madonna's Vineyard, you name it, we did it all. And so at that time, we were recovering from the recession, and the regulatory environment was really changing. Many of you are old enough to remember, like me, even when we had to start wearing these helmets. Why do we wear these helmets? What's this all about? And now look at where we are today. It's a completely different environment. So my company went through that change and that transition, and I had to figure it out. And now to the point where I have spoken and taught at the university level construction management programs. I've become an OSHA, EPA, DOT expert. I'm an expert witness in court cases, a subject matter expert recognized in the regulatory environment and specifically in the construction field. So I do have quite a few roofing contractor clients, and I'm going to highlight one of them today for the accomplishments that they have gotten, because we know that the work that is being done in the roofing industry is all imminent danger work. And one of the biggest challenges that you all have, and we're going to talk about these challenges, is getting your people to comply, despite the fact that one slip and they could die. And yet they don't want to comply, right? It's a very common challenge. So I'm going to highlight some of the things, some of your challenges, some of the things that we can do, and how we need to get there. So what's the importance of creating a strong health, safety, and compliance program? We all know we need that. It's not a surprise, right? But what is the importance of it? I don't think sometimes contractors, especially contractors who are managing subs, and I talked with someone privately about that last night. You kind of don't feel like you have the same requirements or maybe the same stressors of managing and building a health and safety program because you don't have your own employees doing that work. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the reasons that you need to focus on health, safety, and compliance. So safety is probably the only area. I used to say it was the only area, but as a business owner, I've changed my mind on that a little bit, and I'll explain that. It's the only area in which we have a moral component, right? We have a moral obligation to send our people home in the same way, shape, and form that they showed up to work. All their fingers and toes, nobody falls, nobody is injured. That's a moral obligation. It's a moral component of our business. However, because I'm a business owner like you, I also realize we have a moral obligation to make money for our shareholders, don't we? That's a moral responsibility as business owners. So we're going to talk to you a little bit, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how do we do that through building a safety and compliance program. How do we increase our efficiencies and our profits? You actually can do that through building a proper health, safety, and compliance program. It all ties together, and I'm going to show you how. Our company culture, you've heard about culture. You heard Zach talk about culture and the importance of culture. It's incredibly important today because of our labor market. It's an employee's market out there. We can't find enough people, especially young people coming into the trades that actually want to work with their hands. What do all these young people today want to be? Social media influencers. Nobody wants to work actually in the field with their hands, right? They all want to work like this. So it's tough. So if you can create a good company culture where they are making good money, it's going to affect your attrition rate, which in turn will affect your bottom line. Your company reputation. So your company reputation is very, very important, as you just heard from our last speaker. What a great company. I was listening to that whole story about a small town who has a company that is so involved in the community that they've got a great reputation. And who do you think they're going to call when they need a roof done? Right? Well, your reputation is also very much affected by your OSHA record now. How many of you realize that? Your OSHA record is on full display and it's public. Your competitors can see it. Everybody in the community can see it. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Future work opportunities. If you want to talk about money, let's talk about having an OSHA record with one serious citation. You get one serious citation, and those of you that are in the commercial construction world that do the really big work, especially in the major cities, Chicago, Detroit, LA, you are not even allowed to bid on a project if you have one serious citation on your record. And does anybody know how long those citations last on your public record now? 7 years. One citation over 7 years? That's kind of scary when you think about it. Company profits. This directly affects your bottom line. If you can't bid on good work because of your OSHA record and your reputation, your company record, it's going to affect your bottom line. So in essence, I tell all of my clients, if you plan to fail, right? Or you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. I mean, everybody knows that old adage. But it's so true because safety has become something that we don't just poke a stick at anymore. It's not going to work. A lot of you know that. A lot of you, especially if you're a smaller residential contractor, you're probably struggling with that. What do we need to do? What do I have to do? But when it comes to safety, you need to look at it completely different. You need to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you are setting yourself up for failure. And it has to be very intentional given the entire construction environment. It is not like it was 25 years ago. The regulatory environment has completely changed. So you've got to be very intentional in order to get your company to be consistently performing where you need them to be. And it can be done. And on top of that, it can be done in the roofing industry. I've done it. I've done it with my clients. I'm going to show you some examples. Okay, so the objectives that I want to go through with you, I'm going to leave you with this. Number one, we're going to identify safety and compliance concerns in the roofing industry. I think you probably already know what those are. We're going to identify safety and compliance issues in your company. And it might surprise you what some of the things come back. We're going to do a little activity here in a minute. You need to understand the correlation between process and performance. So my original degreed background is business. I didn't start out to become a safety chick. Kind of fell into that by accident, I say. It was because I was running a business and the regulatory environment was changing and all these regulators are coming out and my guys are calling me saying, we got OSHA here. And I can remember 20 some years ago saying, what do they want? Who are they? What do they want? And and my guys would be like, I don't know, they're telling us something's wrong with our scaffolding. And I would say, go on a break. I would literally tell my people that. Just go on a break, they'll go away. No, didn't work that way. This is how I got into the world of safety and compliance, because somebody had to figure this out, right? When this was all coming on very strong, and I was very young and didn't have a clue what I was doing. So now we need to understand, I have applied my business background of process. How many of you in here know the term Six Sigma? Right? Six Sigma, I always say Malcolm Baldrige. I tell my clients, we're gonna Malcolm Baldrige the heck out of your safety plan, because it's gonna become so high performing. And it's a process, but we have to apply process in order to get consistency, okay? Understand the current regulatory environment. So Craig Breithaupt is gonna talk about what's going on in the current political climate tomorrow. And I really want you guys to be here for that one, because I have worked in the fields with the regulatory environments in the swamp myself, in DC, fighting for your industry, fighting for our economy, fighting against these radical things they're trying to do to our economy, which ultimately are going to very much hurt your businesses. So I had a really good conversation with him as a lobbyist. He is going to talk specifically on the political environment, and I think it's very important that you all understand that. You need to understand what's happening today, that our regulatory agencies have been captured, and they are being weaponized against you. So what does that mean? How can you run a successful business and be profitable when our alphabet soup agencies are all targeting you? You actually can, but it takes very specific, intentional process, and you need to understand it. You need to be educated about it. So I spoke about that a lot last year. I'm not going to cover that this year. We're just going to touch on it a little bit, and then Craig's going to cover more of that tomorrow. Understand effective communication. So I am a big proponent of communication. My clients know that. If you're not communicating well, frequently, effectively, then you are failing. All problems happen because of a lack of or improper or ineffective communication. Whether it's personal relationships or business relationships, employer-employee relationships, subcontractor relationships, if you are not communicating clearly, frequently, and efficiently, you are failing. And you're going to see the results of that lack of communication down the road. So that's one thing that I really want people to understand and to master. And sometimes that's difficult for people because we don't all have great soft skills, right? Some people are just very much direct, to the point, out of my way, moving on. Does that make you a great communicator? No, you're actually setting yourself up for problems because you're not communicating what your subs or your employees need to know, or with your clients. If you don't give your clients the information they need, well, whose fault is it when something comes back on you because they didn't know and they're upset? So it's even these little soft skills that are really, really important to what I'm building up here with, which is actually part of a QA/QC program. Okay, again, that's my business background that I'm applying to building a health, safety, and compliance program. And most safety people don't do that, right? I didn't start out just as a safety person. I started out as a business person. And that's why a lot of my work today, actually, when I'm helping a company with safety and compliance, is based on a business model. We're looking at the business, and we're building a safety and compliance program based on that business because we need it to be effective and we need it to improve your bottom line. That's overall, right, business consulting, and that starts with number one, communication. Okay, you need to understand the importance of enforcement. This is where most companies are missing it. If it's not their communication, it's the lack of enforcement. And I'm going to hit kind of hard on that one because I can guarantee if you're not getting compliance, it's because you're not enforcing. So we're going to talk about all of that and how all that works together. So the safety and compliance challenges with the roofing industry specifically, as you already know, is that almost all of your work is what OSHA calls imminent danger. That means if we don't change the way this work is happening, if somebody's not using PPE, the exposure means death. Somebody could die. One slip, one trip, one fall, you could have a fatality. Almost everything you guys are doing is considered imminent danger. Anything above 6 feet. The lack of employee buy-in, we were talking about this last night at the roundtable meeting. The lack of employee buy-in. Why are employees not buying in? Well, there's many reasons for that. Number one, you're not communicating properly to them why they need to. If they don't understand what we're doing and why, how it affects them, it's for them, they're not going to buy in. If you don't dedicate the resources that you need so that they look at this as a positive thing, resources as far as human resources, communication, PPE, training, even the ability to advance in the company. You need to give them the ability to grow and advance in the company through taking responsibility for safety. Hey, the safety star who's going to say, I'll sit on the safety committee, I'll be the lead with this, that person should be looked at as a real asset to your team, and they should be allowed to grow and make more money within the company, right? The lack of employer policy and process. So I've seen a lot of times companies that are performing really well, even though they don't have real clear or specific process, because they communicate really well, they enforce really well. But most of the time, what I find is that when companies are not performing, we can go all the way back to the foundations and they don't have a very good, clear, policy-driven, process-driven safety and health program. They have a manual that's just a cookie cutter of copying some standards and plunking it in a book. And they call that their safety program. That's not a safety program. Those are the OSHA standards, right? A safety program means, how do we take these rules to keep people safe and apply it to our company, right? And so usually when I'm working with a company, I will look and say, what do you have? And we need to get something that covers the work you do in a way that is relevant and relative to the employees. Your health and safety program should be policy and process driven, it should be outcome based, and it should lead to consistent performance every time. If we do this, then we'll have this outcome. But it should also be written in a format that manual is an opportunity for the employees to use it as a working handbook, a field book. The lack of employee training and knowledge, big one. The lack of effective communication and enforcement, I've already covered those. The lack of employer incentives program. You can't just spank them when they're naughty. You gotta reward them when they're good. If you wanna see the good behavior continue, you had better have a good incentives program, right? It's like with your kids. Weather, many of us work in very challenging weather environments, which hampers our work, which creates more dangerous conditions. Demanding owners and crazy schedules. How many of you are dealing with that in the commercial industry? These owners today are driving schedules that are so unrealistic and unreasonable, they actually lead to and contribute to very, very unsafe working conditions. And sometimes we need to be able to say to the general contractor, to the client, whoa, that's not a good idea. We need to slow down a little bit to allow this project to happen safely, and here's why. Sometimes we have to educate our owners. What do they know about your industry, right? The labor market, as we talked about, is a real challenge, and the increasing regulatory aggression. So what does this collectively lead to? A perfect storm for safety, health, and compliance problems. All of it taken together is a real problem today. It's a very challenging environment. Not just the construction environment, but you guys in the roofing industry have a challenge with all of these things collectively. We see increased injuries, accidents, incidents, citations, and obviously your tarnished public record. Decreased efficiencies and profit loss is a direct result of increased workman's comp claims, policies. Your insurance costs are directly tied to your OSHA 300 record, which is why you go through the audit every year. Lost time. When an employee is injured, the lost time work, trying to replace that employee, good luck with that, right? And then the legal challenges of court cases, and I've testified in many court cases for clients who have had injuries, incidents, property damage challenges, and of course you're gonna end up with citations as well. Unnecessary frustration and stress is the #1 reason that employees leave. They're frustrated, they don't feel like there's good communication from management to them. They are stressed out because they're put in a position where they feel like it's a no-win position, especially in these commercial projects, where the schedules are crazy, they're being told they need to do this, they're not given the resources they need to do this, they're not given the support they need, and that's our fault. We need to recognize the stress that especially our middle managers, our foremen, our crew leaders are under. They're under the most amount of stress of anybody in the industry, those middle managers, and we have to be there to give them the support they need and recognize that. Okay, so this is something that I want you guys to participate in with me. If you would take out your phones, scan the QR code there, and tell me, what is your most challenging safety issue for your company? Every company is very different, even though we're all in the same industry. Okay, is it employee buy-in? The lack of employance and compliance with the rules, or employee compliance? The lack of process and policies? Do you know where to begin? You know you have a problem, you know you need to beef up your safety program, but where do we start? Do you have a lack of policy and process? Schedules or clients. If you're a big commercial construction firm, this is probably what you're dealing with. Schedules and crazy clients that drive unsafe behaviors due to the schedule. Labor market issues, communication issues within your team. Are you struggling with good communication within your team? The lack of enforcement or other. Look at that by far. #1, and this is what we talked about last night. By far, it's the lack of employee buy-in. Okay, and then I want to touch on that other issue. So what I predict, and this is what I always say, You're not getting compliance from your people. I know that. But why is that? We need to target that. And then the number 2 thing I think is you're not properly enforcing the rules consistently. And why is that? So let's talk about that. The lack of employee buy-in. Your employees do extremely dangerous work. They could die. They know it. But they blow it off. Why? Because you're not doing a good job communicating to them of why you will not allow them to hurt themselves in your company. I know that stings, but it's true. They're working unsafely because you're allowing them to work unsafely. We got to swallow that bitter pill first. So how do we fix that? We start by the creation of good process and policies. We communicate it like crazy, and then we start enforcing. And that's where you start seeing it come together. Now, for those of you, I'm real curious about this, who told me you have other issues, where are you in the room? I want to hear what those other issues are because there's something I didn't mention on purpose, and I want to see if you guys are dealing with it. So raise your hand if you're someone who hit other, and I want to know who you are and what your other is. Well, there was a good number of you, 3% of you. Nobody wants the spotlight.
They're shy.
I know. Oh, I know. We won't shine the spotlight on you. So let me ask, anyone in here who hit the other and you're saying, I have another issue, is it because you're dealing with 2nd and 3rd tiered subs? I see some of you doing this. So I won't call you out because you didn't want to raise your hand, but you're doing this. Yeah, how many of you are dealing with subs of subs of subs? And you're supposed to get the job done on time, on budget, quality initiatives intact, safely and compliantly. Like, yeah, good luck, right? It's a very common problem in our industry, in the roofing industry. And I want to address that because you can do it. How many of you work for general contractors on commercial construction projects who don't let you get away with unsafe behavior? You're getting fined, you're getting notices. You have to treat those subs exactly the same way. You now become the controlling contractor, just like your controlling contractor is with you. You have to treat your subs exactly like your controlling contractors treat you. You do not want to own them. Do not give them your PPE with your name on it. Do not train them. Do not tell them. Don't go out there and manage them. Because the minute you do that, you own them as employees. And when something happens, you're going to end up in court. And believe me, I've been through that. I've seen a roofing contractor go bankrupt from a fatality of a subcontractor that OSHA said, you own them. You trained them, you're incorporating them into all your company stuff, and you're out there managing them. You own them. So be careful about that. There are some real specific do's and don'ts when it comes to 2nd and 3rd tier subs, and so I wanted to touch on that. There's a lot more that goes into that too. We can talk about that later. Come and see me later if you want to ask me specific questions about that, because that's a real in-depth, detailed conversation. So I want to talk about creating culture. So it may seem counterintuitive. Shouldn't we start with a good culture? Let's work on our company culture. And then it'll lead to the activities and the process? No, it's the other way around. When you create processes and procedures because you want a good, healthy, safe company, you want a profitable company where we can spread the wealth that way. You can give more in company bonuses. The more money you make, the healthier your company is, the more money we all make. So if you start focusing on keeping everybody safe because it's the right thing to do, we are simply not going to allow anybody to work unsafely. We're going to take a zero tolerance policy towards fall protection, despite the labor market, because we're never going to have to make that call that somebody died. We're never going to have to call that spouse and tell them, your husband died today because I didn't make him work safely. That's on you. You got to own that, right? And so you have to start there. So when we begin to create good policies and processes that create habitual performance and then good outcomes every time, everybody stays safe and everybody stays compliant. So therefore, we keep more of our money and we don't give it to OSHA, right? So what happens indirectly is you create a really good company culture that the employees actually like working for. Everybody wants to work for a company that they know cares about them. We have a good culture. Right? We have site-specific safety plans, standard operating procedures. It leads to consistency, which leads to habit. And that it can be done because I have clients that are doing it. It doesn't matter if you go on a residential job or you go on one of their commercial jobs. All their guys are in the same PPE. They're all doing everything exactly the same way. Even if there's no general contractor there overseeing them and there's no other trade on site, they're still doing everything the same way because we've worked really hard at consistent performance. And it's just so that we have consistent outcomes. That's the only way you're going to get there. So what is culture? We know. We believe that our employees should go home safely every night. And the employees know if you believe that. They respond. We never put schedule above safety. Did you hear that? One of the most important things I can say in here. We never put schedule before safety. Yet we do it all the time and we turn a blind eye. We got weather coming. Hurry up and do it. If you do that, you are taking a chance every time. Don't ever take a chance. Never be sorry, always be safe, right? We value our employees over profit. Sometimes you're gonna have to make decisions based on the health and safety of your employees that might hurt you a little bit in the short term, immediately. But overall, for every dollar you spend on safety and compliance, training, PPE, and enforcement, you will save 7. That's been proven through BLS and DOT studies and all of that. They've done a lot of these studies. Without our employees, we have no business. Let that sink in. We know that, but really let it sink in. So culture is having a genuine heart for what you do. And it's when all employees start to feel like this is who we are, and they feel very proud to be part of this company. And they don't want to go to what I call a hack company. They know those employers don't care about them. They know there's a real risk they could get hurt, right? So all employees end up feeling at home. They feel like they belong. This is their family. This is just what we do. This is how we do it. This is who we are. That culture indirectly springs out of you building process. So what is process? It's how we do what we do. It's a creative structure because it has to work for your company. No company is cookie cutter. We should never take a cookie cutter approach, which is why I don't like copying and pasting OSHA standards, plunking them in a document and calling it a safety manual. That's not a safety manual. Those are the OSHA standards, right? It has to be very specific and it has to work for your company. It has to lead to systematic routine. It has to be believable, sustainable, measurable, attainable, repeatable, and predictable. That's the whole point. That's process. We learn process. It's a proactive process that we use pre-planning activities from, we've learned this from the manufacturing world, Kaizen principles in manufacturing, Six Sigma, Malcolm Baldrige. All this came from the general industry, manufacturing, but it works great with construction despite the fact that everybody told me it will never happen. You'll never be able to do that with construction. So what I've done is I've taken the continuous improvement model, which is a business model, and I've applied it to creating a health, safety, and compliance program. So this is an opportunity, it's a method to implement what we do for greater efficiencies, and it leads to maximize profit and a stronger culture. So this is what it looks like. So first we plan. Safety is all about proactive planning. Then we implement. We communicate like crazy, and then we implement what we just planned. Then we measure the success or the failure. We get back together and say what's working, what's not. Because remember, it's got to work for your company. And then we keep, we remove, or we discard something, and we build on it every year. So it's always changing. It's a living, breathing, working program. So where do we start? SWOT analysis of the company, and I can explain this in detail. I'm running out of time here. Documentation of the results, review the results, create a company-specific plan based on the findings of the SWOT analysis, then communicate like crazy, enforce, and review. That's it. So what are the results? A predictable outcome I'm going to show you right here. This is my last slide. These are the results. This was a photo taken 4 years ago by my client in Chicago. They could not be here today, but gave me the permission to show the slide and talk about them. They are a company I've been working with for about 10 years, and this was taken about 4 years ago. That is an OSHA inspector who showed up on their job and was so impressed with them that he asked to have a photo taken. Okay, when does that ever happen? It doesn't. Now, now this was on one of their more residential projects. If you were to go on one of their projects today, even just 4 years later, hard hats, high vis, safety glasses, long pants, boots, every time. Winter, spring, summer, fall, doesn't matter. Because now we've even gotten them to be more process and more habit. And in fact, they just had an inspection on a commercial project 1 year ago, and the inspector did not even want to climb up on the roof and inspect them, the most dangerous trade on the job, besides the electricians, did not even want to inspect them because he told my foreman, nah, I'm not worried about it. He goes, you need to get up there and see? Nah, I'm not worried about it, you guys are good. Because he told him that the 4 regional offices in OSHA know this company. They don't even bother to inspect them anymore because they never find anything wrong. You can actually get there as a roofing contractor. This is an exteriors roofing contractor that OSHA knows in the city of Chicago. They don't even waste their time inspecting them. That's awesome, right? So that's it. And if you guys have any questions, I'm going to leave you with my email, or you can grab me here. So that's all I have. It's a lot, I know, but thank you for listening.